Oh, what a friend we have in Cthulhu. He cares about us all equally. If you see him, you go blind. If you don't, you lose your mind and rip your eyes out so you cannot see.
Hello, this is Ross Baden with Role Playing Public Radio. This is RPPR episode 69, Critique of Cthulhu. And with me, as always, is Tom Church. And this time we have Caleb.
We are both here.
Yes.
I just have the mic right now.
Yes.
Say something. Say something, Caleb.
You can move the microphone over. Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
I contributed.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Now, go play with your coloring book.
Yes. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Call of Cthulhu, both the game system itself and talking about the thematic elements of the Cthulhu Mythos, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't about scaring your players. I think we've covered that before.
We have covered that. We also covered that in Unspeakable. But I just... For those of you who are not familiar with the system, we want to have an understanding of what it's like, what the good points of it are, what the bad points of it are, and if you're running it, what kind of things you need to be aware of without getting into scaring your players. We also have a bit of news. Of course, we also have anecdotes and shout-outs.
The whole bit.
Yeah, we have the whole bit.
It's going to be a whole episode.
I know. But first off, we have some news. First off, the Killsplosion Alpha rules have been sent out to contributors. So the playtest is on. It's 17,000 words right now. And, over 50-page PDF with all kinds of skills and abilities and stuff like that. I know Caleb's taking a look at it. So we're going to give a month of playtesting to go out. And then if you get for those of you who contributed, have the rules right now. Try and get emails to me with a critique of the system, feedback on what worked, what didn't work by February 10th. Then I can process that all, revise it, lay out the PDF, and get the free game out to you. Then I'll work on the zombies versus human expansion, and we'll go on. And
you send in the crude oil, he'll process it into gasoline. That's exactly what Ross does.
That was a beautiful metaphor.
Thank you.
I'm speechless. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, you keep talking.
I know, because I'm a horrible monster.
Yes, you are.
Anyways, also the Minecraft server. We still have an RPPR Minecraft server. There's been all kinds of crazy building and constructions going on in there. I love playing Minecraft admin now because it's like that Outer Limits episode, the Sand Kings, the show premiere. I don't know if you guys have seen that. It's where a guy finds a race of intelligent ants from Mars, and he goes in his house and comes back out. The ants have built giant, mausoleums and statues with his face on it because they wish. And so I feel a little like that because every time I log in the server, there's a giant cat's lair,
and now an Optimus Prime,
or a castle over here, or a submarine, or a sea lab.
You want to guess who did the cat's lair in Optimus Prime?
We'll let you, the listener, find out. We'll have a link to there, but we're also going to be doing our first official event on that on January 22nd. That is a Sunday. That will be from 3 to 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're going to be doing the first Fern Gully LARP, and that's going to be basically, for those of you, I've sectioned off, cordoned off a piece of wilderness in the Minecraft server where the idea is there will be two teams. One will be the elves and fairies and whatever, and they're trying to protect the forest from the evil developers. The evil developers are going to try and destroy all the forest and build stone and metal houses. And
oh my God, mankind.
Yeah, so it's going to be like team construction and deconstruction. And this is going to be sort of a freeform event. I'll be recording stuff through Fraps. I'll put it up on Railery when it's done. People will be judged on creativity, the
ruthlessness.
Yeah, and ruthlessness. So this will be interesting to see. And if you're one of the ops, one of the moderators, you'll have to turn off creative mode because that would be a little unfair.
What? This will be able to summon whatever you want?
Yeah, and be invincible to damage. That would be a little unfair. So and if you want to spectate, you can spectate. There will be 16 players. There's 16 players max on the server. So hopefully we'll have a good time and the server won't crash. So
good luck.
And then finally, in just general RPG news, we do have to announce that since it's huge, is Wizards of the Coast have finally announced that they are going to be doing a 5th edition to Dungeons & Dragons, their flagship game. It's called D&D Next.
Caleb, do you have something you want to say?
And Tom has already announced he's not going to buy it. Is that real? I mean, you're not going to buy it?
It's real today. Things change. I will say that.
Okay.
But dude, like, no, I cannot buy another D&D. Damn it!
It's been 4 years, Tom. I think you can.
It's been 4 years, Tom. I don't care.
Yeah, you do.
No, I don't.
You just.
So you're having a rigid 24-hour boycott for the game that hasn't been released yet.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Way to stick to your convictions there.
I mean, after 24 hours, things will probably change. I'll have to reevaluate. I'll have to look at the budget for the game that's not out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you did buy the Innsmouth expansion for Arkham Horror just so you could become a deep one in the game twice. So,
it was worth it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty pathetic when you think about it. But here I am.
So we have all kinds of things to look for. So when we get more information about that, we'll obviously do an episode about that topic. But it's a little early, I think, to do that.
But it's there. So
yeah, so it's there. And I do admit I do have an anti-Pathfinder prejudice because they fucking won the award at the Ennies that Road Trip should have won. So we will never play Path. No, really, I just don't care. So yeah. Anyway.
No, I think we almost played Pathfinder with RJ once.
No, we did play one session of it, but
so I
just haven't posted it because it was
and
it was supposed to be a campaign, but we only did the one session of it. So it's like kind of like here's something that happened and will never be completed. So,
but you played it, so you can never claim that you'll never play it.
No, I mean like post it on the actual podcast. Yeah.
Oh, it will never see the light of day.
Yeah, because I'm not going to run it. If somebody else does, just one shot, we might. But anyway. We have stuff to talk about.
It will be your secret shame.
My secret shame. Oh, one of many.
Ross, I thought we weren't going to talk about that.
Anyway, so Call of Cthulhu. Why don't we talk about that?
Yes, why don't we?
So Call of Cthulhu is, of course, one of the mainstays of the RPG, world.
And RPPR in particular.
Yeah. It's been around, since the 80s. It is... consider one of the big, after there's, D&D, World of Darkness, and Call of Cthulhu, and, maybe then Palladium or something like that.
Fuck you, Ross.
But,
Caleb Stokes, ladies
I know
and
a lot of
gentlemen.
you listeners out there have played it, but not all of you have. So first we're going to talk about the system itself, its advantages and disadvantages. So, I think...
Shall we start with the good?
Yeah, we'll start with the good. So... because it's like a critique sandwich. You have some good, then a little bad, then some more good, and then that's how that's supposed to work.
You make a sandwich. You put I love this stuff. I really hate this stuff, but it's going on there.
Yeah,
because I don't deserve it. I deserve this.
Anyways, it's a fast system. I think one of the
it really is.
It's fast. It's easy to make characters and easy to learn. There's no element about it that I think players can't pick up on quickly. Even someone who's never played a role playing game before.
I believe that was Caleb's first game with us.
Yes, my first game was The Haunting.
Yes, which is on the Actual Play podcast.
I learned some things other than about how to run a Call of Cthulhu, but had in a game run seriously, that's not a conspiracy against the GM, as that game was.
Yeah, it's true. That's a good way of framing it. We were in a conspiracy
that I was not in on, so I thought this was just every week, and I was like, "Can I make it to the door? Don't lose line of sight with the door." But it is very easy to learn and very easy to pick up on as a GM too. So
I think one of the things about it's not just the system itself, which is a very simple percentile system. You just but it's also because you're playing a normal person.
A lot of people hear that what?
Well, I mean, you're playing if you think about it, most RPGs, you're not playing like a normal baseline human.
You're one of the people that stands above all the others.
Well, no, I mean in D&D, you're playing basically a
mythic hero.
Yeah, a medieval superhero. Someone who can take inhuman amounts of damage, someone with magic power, something like that. World of Darkness, you're a vampire, which is a superhero with fangs. In Wild Talents, you're a superhero with superhero powers. Hey, I heard you like superheroes, so I put a superhero in your superhero. That's
Thank you,
missing
Ross.
old. In pretty much every, or in Eclipse phase, you're still playing like a superhuman. I mean, like a standard transhuman in Eclipse phase is like would be a superhero in like the 21st century because or supervillain, probably supervillain. Let's face it, supervillain.
An immortal, an immortal person with that kind of level of technology.
Right. Well, just having the muse in your head and that kind of being a wireless router by default. So it's very few of the popular RPGs out there let you play a normal human, but that's easy for someone who's new to role playing in general to pick up and comprehend. I think so.
Yeah, and some people might see this as a negative, but I actually kind of like that. There is magic, but it really, really costs you.
Right, and it's not mandatory. Like,
No.
in fact, it's very hard for a player to get it, so it's up to the GM to do that.
But once you do, it becomes a great advantage, but also a millstone around your neck.
Right. I remember Adam Scott Glancy talking about this, like in the latest episode of Unspeakable, talking about how he played Call of Cthulhu for years before he got his hands on his first Magic Tome. So, like, you could be a very dedicated player and never have to worry about that. I think the only times I've done that are games where I really want to, like, you're going to get screwed up.
I actually ran Call of Cthulhu for a group that were primarily we play superheroes. Mm-hmm. And they said afterwards they didn't know if they liked it, but they said they had to completely change the way they thought about role playing games because suddenly that you can't just kick down the door with your dual wielded 45s and save the day. You kick down the door of the cultist compound, you're going to get perforated with bullets before anything supernatural happens.
Right. This is true. This is another. They could be viewed as an advantage or a disadvantage, or a little bit of both. Is the deadliness of Call of Cthulhu. Characters will have 15 hit points at most. Usually about 10 on average. So yeah,
it is a Munchkin-proof system, which is nice. It's Munchkin poison. If your group is infested with Munchkins, lay out some Call of Cthulhu and wait, and they will be gone by morning. It's a very realistic system. If you get shot, you're bleeding out, and you're probably going to die. Like anything else touches you.
Right. I mean, a standard handgun does 1d10 or 2d6 damage.
Yeah. So I like it for that reason.
Yeah. So that's, of course, kind of an acquired taste, I guess, especially if your players are Munchkins. They're going to be making characters pretty quickly. I think it's also one of the things you mentioned, Tom, is that it's not dice intensive.
Yeah. You don't need you're obviously the primary just percentiles. And
you might need some d6s.
Some d6 if you're going to roll. If you're going to make
shotguns
a character.
do like 46. Yeah.
But for the most part, you really only need the extra dice for damage.
Right.
Everything else is pretty much resolved with 3d6s if you're going to make a character.
Yeah.
And then your percentiles.
Yeah.
So you don't have to pack around 600 dice.
Right. I mean that's very
like Wild Talents. Everyone has to have like 10 d10.
Yeah. Also, D&D, you have a lot of different dice for different.
Yeah.
And Magic Missiles do D4, well, depending on what edition and what version of the rules you're using.
Indeed.
And so on and so forth. And, I think that's an advantage. Again, that also is like how it's easy to pick up and how it's easy to learn.
So it's also a lot easier to share dice among other players.
You also mentioned how it's hard to munchkinize. I know, Caleb, when we were talking about it earlier, that it's a transitional system. Do you want to talk about that? What you meant by that?
I think it encourages better role playing from the players because you have to make a unique protagonist without having, I'm the one whose hair's on fire, or I'm the one who can shoot lasers from my eyes. You have to actually make it a personality trait. So I think it's a nice transitional system away from more traditional RPGs where I love the escapist factor of RPGs, but I tend more towards the shades of gray kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's just my personal choice as a player. But if you're trying to get the group into that kind of stuff, I think it's a good idea to maybe, if you've been playing nothing but D&D, start with COC before moving on to like Dirty World and just blowing their mind. It's a gateway drug to
to better things.
To the indie stuff, I suppose.
Right. So this kind of gives you a little idea of like the base, the advantage, I think, of the system, because I mean the system began in the early '80s, and it hasn't changed very much since then.
No.
It's also one of, like, for example, because of its ease of use and its quick speed, like you can generate characters fairly easily, especially if you're familiar with the system. It's the only system that we regularly play that I have the players make their characters for one shots instead of pre-generated.
It's not time intensive.
Because like Eclipse Phase, you couldn't do that. In Wild Talents, you couldn't do that unless you're playing a normal human.
Well, even the players, who are just starting, they can get a character done in only about 10 or 15 minutes more than it takes everyone else.
Yeah. Because it's just counting up, like, okay, you roll these dice, figure out how many points you have.
And your derived values over here.
Yeah.
And then the most intensive is just picking your skills.
Yeah, which ones you want to use, which one you want to have. So yeah, it's a very bare bones character creation system. So
and if you got Bayaki, then shit.
Yeah,
that's what we're talking. Like, I can get a character done in 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that Bayaki is still the best character generator I've ever seen outside. I mean, like the Eclipse Phase is close, but like that needs Excel. That's not a standalone program. So Bayaki is still, I think, the gold standard for character generator software because it's free, it works, and it's fast. So
yeah, even. And I read my first game only having read the Quick Start rules and some Lovecraft short stories, and I thought it was okay. Like I love Eclipse Phase to death, but I've read the Quick Start rules, and I can't imagine had everybody just read the Quick Start rules having a good game.
Which was the first game you ran? Was it
Bryson Springs?
It was Bryson Springs.
Yeah,
okay.
And I can't imagine running like a game like that based off the Quick Start rules alone. Like somebody would have to know a lot more.
Yeah,
and that person would be teaching the game to everybody else.
Yeah,
who was confused after reading the 18-page packet. It is a very fast system in that regard.
Yeah.
Another thing I like about it, I mean, part of this will actually be mentioned in the negatives, but one thing I like, it is easy to create new monsters.
Yeah,
it's pretty much.
Well, I think
like the ones that are set, you have lots that are set, but it's pretty easy just to think up your own.
That's true. If you have the idea for it, like the statting mechanics, it's not like a D&D monster where there's a ton of stats you have to come up with.
Like the Fisher of Men that you did, I love that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Did they even have stats?
I statted those out.
Yeah,
I think I did.
But yeah, you don't need much to stat them out.
No.
You kind of need to know what they can do, how much, if they have an attack, how much damage it does, and beyond that.
Well, I think that kind of dovetails into the disadvantages. One thing is that the attributes, the reason why it's so easy, one of the reasons why it's so easy is because the attributes in Call of Cthulhu are largely meaningless except for specific things. For example,
appearance.
Well, appearance, but all of them basically. Like even strength, there's no aside from lifting, and carrying weight. There's no penalty for having a low strength outside of a few things like possible damage.
Kind of like palladium.
Yeah, it's kind of like palladium. Like you're not penalized. There's technically no penalty.
Yes. We said the word.
Yeah.
Caleb is going into a fit.
Yes. It's his code word. He just sees red after that.
It's his Manchurian Candidate
word. Would you like to play a nice game of Palladium?
And off he goes to kill somebody.
But I think like character, like PCs, like and some stats are, and they're unevenly weighed. Like power is ridiculously important in that game because that like luck,
sanity.
Which is luck and sanity and magic points, which are used to defend against magic attacks, which are used to cast spells. With luck is used for all kinds of things. And
intelligence and education, I think too.
They're reasonably important, because that's skill points and
points.
ID and knowledge attributes.
Yeah,
but
reflexes, a lot of dex.
Dex, yeah.
A lot of stuff is a lot of roles are based on dex.
Yeah,
but
like con, strength, size, appearance. They're like appearance is almost totally useless. Like there's not a charisma attribute.
It's persuasion and fast talk.
Yeah, so it's kind of an uneven bag. So monsters, you can assign them stats without having to worry about it too much because of that. Or characters. I mean, like, oh yeah, he's got a strength of 9. Whoop-de-doo. So you can go on investigating. So there's that. Also, there's a lot of skills are uneven too. Now that I think about it, like it's especially if you're not familiar with the system, you may not. There are tiers of skills. There's the god tier of skills. Spot hidden, dodge, listen. And then there's like the B tier, which are like library use. Various weapon skills because there's a lot of different weapons. And then there's like the skills that are either incredibly important or totally useless, like German. If the book's not in German, you're like, who cares?
Operate heavy machinery.
Operate heavy machine. Well,
is vital for every scenario.
Like operate heavy machine. Even in the scenario that I have run, where I meant the whole purpose of the scenario was to use operate heavy machinery. No one used it. So like, operate heavy machinery is still the bitch skill of Call of Cthulhu. Maybe some of the piloting skills, or something like that,
or photography,
photography, because like no one ever takes a picture in Call of Cthulhu for some reason.
Well, we're too busy killing or running.
Yeah, exactly. We're accounting. There's another one.
Actually, I didn't say credit rating too.
Credit ratings, again, like the your money, basically. I mean, credit rating is actually used in publishing areas. That's kind of a C. Kind of not like not an F, but not an A.
Well, actually, that's I guess another thing. You can't really play a rich person.
You can.
Well, not really. I mean, you can have credit rating, but I mean, if you want to be like, say you actually want to play like a
someone with enough money that he unbalances the game.
No. I mean, the millionaire playboy character.
Yeah.
Which especially if you're in the 20s.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do that because you still have starting wealth.
Right.
And so your credit rating is like, well, I maxed out my credit rating skill. Does that mean I have the penthouse in Manhattan, my own ship that we could transport everything? You're like, well, no, not really. Like, well, then great.
Yeah. Well, that can be hand-waved pretty easily. I mean, I think that's more of a game balance. And everything in the 20s is so cheap, you can buy whatever you want, really. Like, you can buy all the Tommy guns and dynamite you need without having to,
Which you must have.
Yeah, well, that's just how it goes, so...
segueing into another disadvantage, mentioning the billionaire playboy 1920s millionaire, there's a problem with getting that billionaire playboy with the hobo, the other person rolled up, with the investigative journalist, with the tribal war fisherman veteran and the tribal fisherman, and let's all go. Like, they're getting into adventure is a serious challenge in a lot of Call of Cthulhu things that I think a lot of Call of Cthulhu texts even recognize, but getting all the PCs, especially when they're rolled by players, into the same place and on the same page, can be pretty difficult unless there's a lot of work beforehand. Yeah, that's why Delta Green's so popular,
right? Because it's a great framing device for getting people with the skills that would be relevant for an investigation to go investigate. L creepy shit. So
L creepy shit.
Yeah. So I think that kind of goes into the fact that Call of Cthulhu, I believe, is even though it's easy to play and learn, it's definitely more challenging to run than D&D, because D&D has a very standard, framing device. You go to the dungeon, you kill the monsters, you get the loot, or you stop and you stop the bad guys, and that's it.
And in D&D, you have your minis and your battle mat.
Yeah, well, depending on what edition, what rules you're using, but still, it's a very heroic literature, fantasy literature. You go here, do this, come back. In Call of Cthulhu, it's a mystery investigation game, but Call of Cthulhu itself is a skill based thing, and you can miss the vital clues.
Yeah.
Which is, I know you pointed out, Caleb, that the whole thing was because if you fail, they invented the gumshoe system. Robin Laws invented that solely to fix that one part of Call of Cthulhu, which was one of the reasons why it's so challenging to run. The base game.
Yeah, that's something I had to learn. Comments. Thank you for the helpful critique that I was doing too much spot hiddens and stuff when I ran COC earlier.
Yeah,
and I agree, but mysteries are great, but it's hard to DM that, because if you really want a true mystery, you need to have multiple plot branches for if they are not solving the mystery. Like, you need to be prepared for when they're just like, the cultist is Charlie Chaplin. Let's let's mow down the mansion and drive away. Like,
set it on fire and shoot anyone who comes out.
Yeah, like when they fail that check and they get some nonsense information as a result, you have to be prepared to roll with it, or you got to railroad them. Like, that's pretty much it. So That's a weakness of the system.
I think, and it's not just the system itself, because like some of the Call of Cthulhu adventures, there's a real wide range. Like Call of Cthulhu has the best written adventures in any RPG ever, but it also has some of the worst adventures, and not just worse overall, but like worse in different ways. Like, I mean, Dennis Detwiller is a great writer, and his adventures are very well written, but they're fucking balls hard. It's like I want to be that guy, except in Call of Cthulhu format. You know, it's or Super Meat Boy only. You know, on the challenge levels. I mean, they're fucking like, oh yeah, invisible rate. I know we've gone into this before, but like some Call of Cthulhu adventures literally say like, if you fail the spot check, you don't get the one clue you need to finish this adventure. They're fucked, you know, and they won't know it for 3 sessions. You know, like I don't know what it is, but some adventure writers take the simulation really too seriously and like, no, that's how it'd be, you know, blah 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 blah. In a world of giant tentacle monsters, we have to be as realistic as possible, you know.
Yeah, another thing I've noticed that some things the skills don't allow you to really do. Like, I think chases are one thing that I've never seen done well in Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's me. Everyone loves a car chase.
Right. I know like One Roll Engine and the World of Darkness and a lot of more recent game systems have really good chase mechanics. Hopefully Kill Explosion. I wrote that.
Exactly.
Yeah. But there, or just complex encounters in general. I know like in Wild Talents, one of the first sessions I had, like a building was on fire and there was a monster inside, or, you know, a crazy superhuman. And the players had to deal with both at the same time. And so that was easy to run in because there's the fire and then there's the superhuman. You have to do this to get rid of that. It was a very clear cut game. There were very clear cut game mechanics on how to do both at the same time. So players could choose what I will do this, and that reduces this fire's threat by, you know, X number of dice. But in Call of Cthulhu, it's kind of like make it Dex times 5, you know,
to outrun the fire.
Yeah, exactly. There is, and like the one thing I really hate is the resistance check, which is what they use for opposed skill checks. If you're like the classic example is if you're poison, you make an opposed check from your character's con versus the potency of the poison. But it's like if your con is 11 and the poison is 8, then that's 3 difference. 3 times 5 is 15, so you have plus 50 is 65%. So you have a 65% chance of resisting the poison. You know, and that's like, God damn, what the hell? Like, can you not do something better?
Yeah, the resistance table is really the one thing you really need to keep the book for. Like, if you're not
and
weapon damage. But like, you write that down and you look it up, and you don't need the book anymore for most of it. But the resistance table, there's that. I'm not crazy about the impale system. That could be just
really.
That could be just me, just because I like the way EP does it better for critical hits. But I'm not crazy for calculating percentages on the fly of the dice. Just because.
Well, can you explain to the listeners at home, or not necessarily?
EP system, Eclipse Phase. If you roll doubles and you're under your skill rating, then you get a critical hit.
Or if you roll 100.
Or if you roll 100. And if you roll above and you get a doubles, you've got a critical fail. So you still improve along with your skill rating. If your skill rating goes from 50 to 60, you've just added another chance to have a critical success and taken a critical failure away.
Right.
But the impale says, I don't even remember what it is off the top of my head.
1/5 of that.
1/5. Yeah, you're doing fractions and like carrying decimal points and stuff.
If your skills, that's why
for the impale. And I'm not wild about that personally. If we're talking like, I think if a game should be simple, it should maintain its simplicity and otherwise. It's still a great system, but like thematically in terms of the rules, that stuff doesn't fit.
Yeah, the rules are a little uneven in their difficulty. I think that's why every time I make characters, I make sure all of their skills are percentiles, divisible by 5, so it's easier to figure out that 1/5. Like, no one's gonna have a 64% of my character in my pregens. Fuck that shit. But 65. That's 13. I know that. But that and that's kind of bad. But that's easily. That's not too bad, though.
It's a nitpick.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a valid concern, though, because, again, it's got this disparity between playing it and running it. And these rules, the resistance and the impale system, and the lack of clear rules for complex situations, like not just chase, but, climbing mountains, for example, not to, beat a dead horse. But
as you beat the dead.
But, I mean, there's very little ways, there are very few ways to adjudicate these kinds of situations. Another thing, actually, now that I think about it, just came to me is the initiative rules for combat. There's no randomness to it at all. It's literally by the rules. It's just your dex. Highest dex goes first, and that's a very kind of like boring way, I think, of doing it because it doesn't add any like sort of a little bit.
The ninja's always going to go first,
right? And so that's kind of unfair. Well, I mean, it's just kind of boring. I think give the slow guy a chance to get the drop on the bad guy or the enemy or whatever.
I love how long we've gone on disadvantages, even though we play this game like 2 or 3 times a month.
Well, I look at it more just like things that concern us when we play.
Yeah.
Well,
because
yeah.
I still say no matter what disadvantage it has.
Well, it's clearly a fun system because we wouldn't be playing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And also, I kind of think the sanity system
Yeah.
is a little hard to role play.
Yeah, I think we were all talking about that earlier. The sanity system is very simple. It's sort of the first one is basically mental hit points, and when you meet certain thresholds, again with the 1/5, it's like if you lose one, they're very like the triggers for going insane are very specific, and if you don't remember, it's like 5 or more in one sand loss and hit, or 1/5 in 1 hour of game time or less, and there's a few others that I don't even remember, but those are the 2 big ones, and then there are random tables to figure out what your insanity is. Temporary,
which you can use.
right? Those are optional, but we've mostly used.
But I really to me, it's kind of hard to role play the just a sand loss. I mean, it's easy to role play. You go temporarily insane. That's
right.
You pretty much like you roll. Okay, well, here's what happens to you. You can role play that. You're done.
Right.
But say you just lose 3 sanity. Like, what's that supposed to mean?
Right.
For your character, I mean, like, so how am I supposed to play that?
Right.
Am I supposed to, oh my god, or like I didn't see that? I don't know. It just seems to me it's kind of like my problem with hit point damage.
Yeah.
Is like you just took 5 points of damage. Like, what does that mean to me?
Yeah.
It means you have 5 less hit points. So
it is. Yeah.
That's the same thing with the sanity here.
Right. There's kind of a level of abstraction there. I mean, my personal interpretation is that if it's not enough to drive you mad, your character is able to, any role playing is fine because people react differently to stress, and I think even being able to laugh it off, like, oh, this is fine, I'm happy, that like clearly denying it would be good role playing. So.
Yeah, I love the randomness of the table. Like Bryson Springs when Aaron went nuts and rolled amnesia. And then, walked skipping down the road with the cultist. I thought that was a beautiful moment of the dice. But then at the same time, who wants to role play nymphomania at a table with a bunch of dudes? That's going to get an awkward night. So it's got some ups and downs. So.
Well, or unless you're going the Dick Marvel route, for the more sanity you lost, the gayer you become.
Yes. Just a reminder that the listeners can listen to the AB3 stories and Roleplay Rebel Grady. Yeah. Dick Marvel. But again, that also I think again comes down to the difficulty in role play or running a game for Call of Cthulhu, because then you have to handle that for all the players and make sure that they're kind of towing the line. But on the other hand, it does help reduce one of the reasons why it's hard to munchkin Call of Cthulhu, because you can have the Yithian lightning gun, it costs you 1d3 sanity because your character's a physicist, and I'm just going to rule every time you've used that weapon it costs you sanity because you're a physicist, and that shouldn't work that way.
It's like, or if you're not a physicist, just it's
then you're gonna misuse it.
Let's see. We'll have a base skill of Yithian lightning gun at 15.
Yeah.
And if you botch, you're gonna get radiation poisoning, which happened.
Yeah,
before.
I remember that. That was good times.
And actually, I kind of like this one. Knowledge can be a liability in this game. That's okay. I'm back to an advantage.
Yeah.
I like that actual knowledge can be a liability.
Well, aside from that, reducing your maximum sanity, which I don't think any character we've had, because we've only done one shots, and has gotten enough Cthulhu Mythos to actually reduce their sanity. I mean, aside from the sand loss from reading the book.
No, to reduce our permanent. No, I don't think we've ever done that.
Because you'd have to get 20 or 30 points of Cthulhu Mythos, and getting that in one game session, your character's going to be crazy anyway.
Yeah.
You
read the books.
Yeah, well, you talked to Nyarlathotep. He gave you a seminar, that was CthulhuCon.
Yeah, so, corporate seminar with Nyarlathotep.
Yeah, exactly.
So does he go for the high quality hotels, or do you think he would just be like at a Holiday Inn?
I could see him in both, honestly. I think he works in all situations. He's a man of the people.
At the Courtyard Marriott in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Exactly. So
it's like self-actualization in you.
So we've been talking about the system itself, the good and the bad. Yeah. Why don't we talk about the Cthulhu Mythos? And we're not going to be talking like how to scare your players, because we've done that, topic to death. But like, let's talk about them thematically and why some people really like it and some people don't really dislike it.
I'm going to go flat out and say I still really like it.
Yeah, of course.
I love all the old, like the old ones are great. Most all the monsters are great.
Yeah,
and especially the old ones, man. They're really awesome. Very, yes, nameless horrors, but yet they're named, and you can still describe them, and I like that.
Yeah,
and also they're really effective at being villains.
Right,
every last one of them.
And I know, but there is one issue with that, and it's also because the people who are kind of predisposed to playing Call of Cthulhu are going to be the ones who are fans, and that's kind of leads to issues that I know you were bringing this up earlier, Caleb, about the whole metagaming issue, the knowledge of the mythos. I know we talked about this on Unspeakable as well, or I did with other people. But what is your take on that?
I'd prefer not to use different creatures of the mythos, because while they're cool, and I like reading about them, and I love the stats in the Cthulhu book, like each 1d4 investigators per turn. I love that they stat out all that stuff. I think they're great to read in terms of getting a background of how the Lovecraftian, pantheon transfers into the game.
Yeah.
But if your group plays a lot, you're going to be an hour in. Oh, it's a Chthonian. Oh, well, it's a fire vampire. Oh, it's a star.
I know that's happened to me. I know, like in the Zeppelin game, as soon as I heard invisible and sucked blood out of different little porous little tentacle. Oh, yeah, that's a star vampire. Yeah, I recognize that.
And to me, if the point of the game is horror, that kind of sucks the weight out of the scenario. It'd be like if in the middle of the vampire movie, all the characters suddenly went meta.
Yeah.
And, oh no, it's definitely a vampire. We got to get this, and this, and and like if that's the theme of the movie, that's fine. But it's not really a scary vampire movie anymore. It's an adventure movie with a vampire.
I think it can be pulled off, but it makes it a lot harder. I think Fright Night, like the remake, we saw that a little while ago, and that I think pulled it off.
Well, I don't think it was a bad movie, but I wasn't scared. Like, I didn't find it horrifying. I was like, okay, cool, fight the vampire. It was an adventure movie with a vampire as the villain. I wasn't like, oh god, like Salem's Lot or something like that.
Well, the scene on the highway, I'm thinking that scene was scary, but the rest of it, because they get the crossbow and everything else, and
David Tennant's in it.
Yeah, this is true.
It's hard to be scared when David Tennant's on the screen because you're giggling.
Well, I actually said, but to me, I agree with that. But there's also a difference between just the monsters and the old ones.
Yeah,
the old ones, if used correctly, it's actually good that the players recognize that one because they almost never just suddenly show up.
Yeah,
they're usually the ones that appear at the end of the campaign.
Yeah,
and I think to me that's good. That a lot of players like they often play games, but you're like, God, it'd really be great if we could actually encounter Cthulhu in this one because you almost never do. It's usually always you read books about him, and deal with the minions, but. The old ones are good to actually throw in there, even if you know them for the end of a campaign.
They're great for a finale, I think.
And I think that's what they should be used for. So really knowing them is fine, but it's the actual monsters that show up.
Yeah.
That I think, yes, you recognize, oh, that's a ghoul, a deep one.
Yeah. So
but then again, as I said, it makes it easy to make your own monsters.
Yeah. I mean, that's true, so yeah.
The thing I've noticed is that the themes of Lovecraft, or at least where Lovecraft survived, I guess his legacy is the whole cosmic horror thing, whereas you are small, petty, and insignificant, and your life is meaningless,
right?
As is everything you love, and that's really hard to represent in a game, especially a one-shot, or at least really hard to represent vividly enough that anyone wants to keep playing. So it typically manifests in like cultists trying to kill you, stop the gate in time, and I think that's what makes it a fun game and whatnot. But if you can get that into the game, even as a hint, I think that's fantastic. Like that whole concept, as none of this matters. You could win or lose, but it's going to happen anyway. If you can even get that in there, that can be kind of creepy. But it's so hard to do narratively. I don't think it happens though. But since it's such a physical confrontation, or at least it often ends up that way in Cthulhu games, I think Cthulhu games, unlike Lovecraftian stories, typically build towards pretty big climaxes, or at least my experience with them. There's usually some pretty big chase fight, encounter with another dimension kind of thing. That it gives it a nice narrative arc. But.
Yeah, that's true. These stories, these games are always built on genre fiction, and genre fictions always follow, sort of formulas. Again, we talk about D&D's formula, but in Call of Cthulhu is, I think you mentioned earlier, was the, find scary thing, find out about, book that mentions scary thing, encounter scary thing tries to eat you.
Or a
doesn't.
friend of yours encounters scary thing.
Right. So, and that explains why the tribal fisherman, the lumberjack, and the millionaire playboy are all fighting evil together. So, but I think, that's the thing about it. One of the things that always struck me that was interesting about Call of Cthulhu is how many people just stick to the canon, as it were, in terms of monsters and things allowable. That Lovecraft, and also sticking to the 1920s. 1920s are interesting to me, but honestly,
I prefer World War II myself.
Well, Lovecraft was writing modern fiction at the time. He wasn't writing historical fiction. He was writing the here and the now. He was writing cutting-edge science fiction, talking about recently discovered planets, now not planets, and used technologies and theories. So he would have been, if he was alive today, he'd be writing stuff set in the here and now, and he would definitely not be worried about using the same elements over and over again. He used the gods over and over again, but he always made up new monsters or gimmicks or spells in order to make things scarier. And I think one of the things about cosmic horror is that it's infinite, that there should be a variety of monsters.
And also on times you play in, too.
Right. So that's one of the reasons why I like the Carcosa adventures, too, is because I can just go batshit insane with, crazy non-Euclidean architectural horror, it's the room is scary. Well,
actually, I heard
it is super scary.
I heard a one-shot someone did. They essentially, there were basically 3 players in this game, and they were playing Hunter S. Thompson, Dr. Gonzo, and the hitchhiker they pick up from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Except all the shit they're seeing on drugs is actually real. It was essentially just a one-shot campaign done like that, which still managed to be freaky as hell.
So was it a campaign or a one-shot?
It was a one-shot.
It was a one-shot.
Because basically it was them driving to Vegas.
Yeah.
And just seeing all this weird shit. And essentially, it's like the movie, except they're not they didn't take a single drug.
Yeah.
They're just seeing all this.
They really are in backcountry.
Yeah. But Carcosa was in this.
Well,
essentially they were going to Vegas, but they didn't really have a story they were going for.
Yeah.
But that's you can do stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is one of the problems that is often leveled is like tissue paper characters, because they're so fragile, and you can't really do a campaign about it without a whole conga line of characters to replace dead ones or crazy ones. And I know when I ran Mass of Nyarlathotep all those years ago, I did that because one, I just wanted to do that way, and two,
we all wanted to experience that.
Yeah,
too.
And that was Mass of Nyarlathotep, which is a really fucking lethal campaign, but. I think the thing is, I mentioned this before, that you can do a Call of Cthulhu campaign if you know that will be long and with relatively few character deaths or insanities if you know how to run it. And that means understanding the pacing, which means or because of how toxic the Cthulhu Mythos elements are to characters, you have to really minimize it, and you have to really emphasize the possibility of encountering it. So what you do is you do investigative campaign with a lot of legwork, interview, and mundane threats and challenges, almost like a police procedural or, a conspiracy theory movie or story, something like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Very good.
Where your characters are unraveling this mystery, and then instead of uncovering a spy or a killer, they uncover, a Shoggoth or whatever. So that kind of gives you an idea of how to do a Cthulhu campaign that isn't going to be like replacing character after character every other session or something like that. So it's again, the Call of Cthulhu, the challenge is in running it, which is a much higher skill level than like just playing it. But it's still like if you have some idea of how to run it, and you approach it right, you can do it from the very first session like Caleb did. It's just a matter of having the right mindset to do it, I think, more than anything else.
And doing the right prep work.
Yeah, the right prep work too, which emphasizes the mystery and not the mayhem so much.
And not the door kick.
Because the mayhem will come from the players or the monsters. Mostly the players, though.
Yeah, the players.
Let's be honest.
Players are psychotic.
Well, they're just players, Tom. That's just how they are.
They're psychotic, Ross.
It's player logic. So we'll just leave it at that.
Logic. That's a nice word.
So we have a letter from Tom.
Yep.
And we of course we have shout outs and then an anecdote from Aaron's latest game, which is about Lovecraftian stuff. So
Indeed.
it ties in. So we'll be right back.
I'm not going to blow anybody's mind with the following, so I will just come out and say it. Players in RPGs are harmless psychopaths. Now, I say harmless because nearly all players will never do anything that would actually cause a problem to society, apart from being resource-consuming drains on the public coffers. That and the aggressive immobility of many gamers that could be considered another blight on our public image, myself included, but we are mostly harmless. But let's be honest, if the characters those players thought up actually existed in real life, our world would be thrown back to the primal law of survival of the fittest. The cities would be ravaged places where hordes of gun, sword, magic, explosive, and demonic minion-wielding PCs would be cruising around in their nuclear-powered road warrior vehicles or skeletal nightmare steeds, spreading violence, destruction, and cheap beer and ale across a blasted landscape. Yes, it would be worse than Detroit. So we can all agree, PCs are a rather violent lot. So much so that most of them go around wiping out towns or the entire adult orc population of some random medieval world. And yet many of those players have no idea that consequences might come up in response to their actions. And why should consequences come up? Most encounters are like bad action movies, where those that would enforce consequences would be nothing more than lambs to the slaughter. Entire squads of civil servants would be cut down mercilessly by most PCs, helpless before the onslaught. The only time most players have to worry is when all the underlings are smoking lunch meat, and then Oddjob shows up with his razor hat, or Lurtz, the only Urukai with a name, shows up and kills Boromir. So many players go on about their business without a care in the world. And why is this? Well, like most people, PCs want to have power, real or imagined. And there's nothing wrong with that. Power is a natural human need. Whether it's running a multi-billion-dollar mega-corporation or just spraying that roach in your kitchen with a steady stream of Raid, pretending you're Red Adair on a blazing oil platform in the middle of the Caspian Sea. And for players, this need for power comes out in their RPG characters. Sure, Ralph Bieselman, who works the counter at Office Depot, might not have much power on his own, but Ralph's 19th level Blackguard with a soul-devouring sword of Megacock is the scourge of Make-Believia, feared by all from the local bootlick to the Emperor of the land. And this is perfectly fine. We all try to escape our own humdrum lives from time to time. This is one of the many things that role-playing does beautifully. Escape from the mundane, a brief dip in the pool of imagination, and back into reality afterwards. So most players don't like it when their refreshing dip in the imagination pool is interrupted by the consequences that many times resemble those of the world they are trying to escape. That Blackguard isn't meant to be arrested by the city guard for crimes against humanity. However, I put it to you that having a character deal with the consequences of an action they or their friends have carried out can be one of the most fun things to roleplay through. I use the examples of a game set in the Mass Effect universe I have been following lately. In one scene, the squad of human and alien badasses stormed a building that was being used as a mercenary base. The squad consisted of a wide selection of brooding heroes for hire, the kind of soldiers that would swagger through a room of criminals and demand that the leader surrender to them. If not, they were confident they could kill every armed thug in the room before anyone else got a shot off. I'm exaggerating a bit, but you get the idea. The group runs through the base, laying waste to anything in their way. They come across a scientist along with that scientist's child. They free them, but leave them behind as they are on a mission. Like many PCs, they plan for extreme prejudice measures on the mission, as in they wired the whole building to explode. Things happen and the building is leveled. The players emerge victorious. The hostages are free because the Geth player went back in and saved them at the last minute, getting pretty damaged in the process. So imagine their surprise when the authorities show up and arrest them. Now, many of the players didn't expect this, but it made perfect sense. Yes, the building was being used by mercenaries who were engaged in criminal activities. But it was still a building in the middle of a crowded city. It was blown up without any thought to what pedestrians might be right outside. And only one player went back to save the hostages. That player got praise from a canon character from the game, and everyone else was put on trial. And you know what happened? Many of the players found that the trial was a great scene to roleplay, and actually felt that understanding that there were consequences to their actions that affected other people was a great character growth moment. Sure, some of the players disagreed, and some players still wanted more freedom to kill the bad guys as they wanted, without worrying about what might happen. That's okay too. That's what some players want, and if they can still work with the group and everyone else is having fun, it all works. Point is, don't worry if the GM suddenly hits you with a dose of reality after one of your PC-induced orgies of death. A good role player will recognize the possibilities in such a moment and may quickly find the experience worthwhile. My character Kyrop in Wild Talents is such an example. A career criminal who was finally forced to pay for the actions of his youth. And his trial and confrontation with his son was a great moment. And even the bad guys I killed in the game came back to haunt me. Bad guys who I had no problem crushing, mutilating, or dropping an air conditioning on. And I had to answer for it all. And it was totally worth it.
What does your daddy do?
My daddy drives big trucks all across the country.
Oh, Timmy, what does your daddy do? My daddy works for the bank and gets to count money all day long. Billy, what does your daddy do?
My daddy waits for the day when the elder gods will rise from the wastes of Morthok and return Cthulhu to his former glory and power. For on the 7th day of the 7th month, at the 7th hour, the 7 followers of Abraxas will throw the Chosen into a pit of madness to begin the ritual that will throw this mortal world into darkness for 1,000 years.
And Adam, what does your daddy do?
Stays the away from his daddy, that's for damn sure.
That was a good letter, Tom. That was entirely reasonable and good advice.
Yeah.
Are you feeling all right?
Yeah, I'm doing fine, but I would say that following that game's been kind of fun.
There wasn't even that much, profanity or
No, I felt like I had a point to make here.
Oh wow,
it's really kind of fun. It's a web game.
I see.
So I've just been following.
Is it a play-by-post game?
Yeah,
I see.
And I've been following it along for a few weeks now. And
I see.
It's kind of fun, just to watch them because I loved it that no one expected the consequences.
Right.
Yet when they happened, most of the players like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. I know that. Yeah, I mean, that we've had encounters like that in other games like the New World. I mean, I know like the dinner party and things like that. People, I think, didn't anticipate being as good as they were. So
no, I think that's when we are at our best.
Yeah.
I think
So. High role playing moments,
especially I think. Well, D&D was different. Combat then is pretty much. I was like, and we're doing a numbers game now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Anyway, we have some shout outs to talk about. So, Tom, you had one.
It's an old game that I actually got to play again, which I was really happy about. It's called Maniac Mansion Deluxe Edition.
The LucasArts version?
Yeah, the really old LucasArts game. They released...
Is that Day of the Tentacle and everything? Or is it back on the NES?
Maniac Mansion was the first game before Day of the Tentacle.
Right. Well, there's the Nintendo one.
This is the actual... No, it's not the original computer game. That was really primitive.
Yeah.
But this was like the updated of the computer game.
I gotcha.
And I love the Nintendo game.
Yeah.
And it was really nice, and I still have that, but it's really nice to play this one.
Is this, how'd you get it? Did you get it through Steam or some other game service?
No, it was being released for free on just a download site.
Legitimately?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But what I love is it's really what's fun for me was seeing what they cut out of the Nintendo version.
Uh-huh.
Like there's actual, there's blood stains on certain walls, or there's actually a statue of a woman in one of the hallways that they got rid of because it's like a statue of a woman in a gown, and they felt that we were showing a lot of 1980s pixelated boob.
Yeah.
Couldn't have that.
No. That's going to be the thing that corrupts kids.
Exactly.
Those pixels ruin forever.
Indeed. So, but no, I like that because it's good to see the game the way it originally was.
Speaking of things that are being ruined forever, I just remembered this. This is another thing from the 80s too, is that there's a book, two books of classics of children's literature, scary stories to tell in the dark.
Oh my God!
Yes, and you mostly remember them because of the incredibly scary artwork.
Oh my. That shit still freaks me out.
That's like, pure grade A, 100% nightmare fuel. And they're releasing, it's got the 30th anniversary editions coming out. They're releasing it with new artwork.
From the same guy?
No, from
different guy.
Yeah, it's shit. It's incredibly like generic Harry Potter-esque. Like,
fuck that.
Yeah, I know.
Dude, those scary stories were mediocre at best.
Yeah.
Everyone remembers the artwork.
It's about the artwork, which is,
Okay, I don't even remember which book it was in or what story it was in, but there was a picture of this skull-faced guy in a white suit.
Yeah.
And my dad called him Papa Django because he looked voodoo-y or something.
Yeah.
Just stopped me sleeping for like a year. Like, my parents, to this day, talk about Papa Django and how much they hate him because the books terrified me so much when I was a kid. It's a rite of passage.
Yeah.
There's a whole generation of children that will sleep peacefully.
And we can't have that.
Shit, actually, I remember one.
You have to get the books now on eBay or used copies.
I even remember the story.
Yeah.
There's a story called Wonderful Sausage.
Yeah.
It's essentially like a guy killing people for their meat. There's a picture of a severed arm holding a fork with a meatball on it.
Yeah.
And it's like a bloody severed arm. Shit like that. And this is for kids.
We should organize a boycott of HarperCollins, whoever's publishing it, and just tell them we the nerds demand the scary art. We want to traumatize a new generation of children.
Dude, every single one of those pictures was freaky in some way.
Oh my god! That
was what was brilliant.
Sigh.
I don't even know who
they're ruining it forever.
I don't even remember who the artist was. You owe it to that man to have that artwork back in there.
Yeah. Get the original edition. I actually have the original edition. I actually bought them a couple of years ago for use in a Little Fears game. So
nice.
But yeah. Anyway, so next up, there's a movie. Speaking of horror and scary things, Caleb and I watched a Australian horror film called The Tunnel, which is about why don't you tell us about it?
The Tunnel is about a crew of Sydney journalists doing a story about a water recycling plant that's going to be put in the abandoned subway tunnels.
Well, like they're going to, the idea I think is there are these reservoirs that have been abandoned in the water, and they're going to tap them and purify the water
that's collected in these old World War II bomb shelters and stuff.
Yeah.
This labyrinth of stuff, which is apparently really beneath Sydney, and so it's like found camera footage kind of stuff. Of them moving through the tunnel and being attacked by something, and it's really smart filmmaking on a budget.
Yeah,
and there's some genuinely creepy stuff, and it's got a whole urban explorer element to it because they really filmed it in those.
It's
tunnels.
great fodder for gaming, and they released it legitimately through BitTorrent. Like they seeded the torrents themselves in order to get publicity for it. I don't know. I mean, that's how I got it, and I don't know if they still have it out like that. It's been released in DVD in the U.S., so it's a good, and it's probably on Netflix and all these other streaming services. So it's just a good, entertaining, horror film to watch.
Yeah,
so.
It's shot in a documentary framework, so you'd think that would steal the suspense away from it, but it doesn't. It's still pretty good.
Yeah.
Although I still love the cameraman at the beginning of it, as opposed to I wish he'd stayed that way the entire film.
Very jocular.
Monsters. But that's about it.
I want to talk about urban things. There's a book I've been reading right now. I'm almost done with it, called Instant City. It's a story of Karachi, which is the largest city in Pakistan. It went from, and it's talking about how it exploded in growth and size from 1947 when Pakistan was formed to now. It went from 600,000 people to 13 million people, and from 1947 till now. And so that caused some issues, some instability.
It's like some infrastructure problem.
A little bit, yeah. It's almost like a post-apocalyptic world in of itself, because many of these neighborhoods, what's really fascinating is the nitty-gritty stuff, like the mechanics of how these neighborhoods operate. So it's an interesting book if you're at all interested in how cities are formed, urban design, that kind of stuff, and corruption.
SimCity players.
Yeah, SimCity players. Which
I play the fuck out of.
I'm reading his research for my post-apocalyptic game, because I think Karachi, in a lot of ways, is how the post-apocalyptic world will work. It's self-guided neighborhoods and that kind of thing. Anyways.
On a completely unrelated note.
Yeah.
I was looking through for boring school teacher stuff, and I found a kind of cool tool for RPG things. It's called Fake iPhone Text, just .com, and it's just a text box, and you type in a line and hit enter, and type in a line and hit enter, and once you hit convert, it'll spit you out a screenshot of what it looks like as a list of text messages on an iPhone. So I thought that'd be good for making handouts for games, especially mystery games. Like, you find the dead guy's phone, and it says, and you can pass that out to people.
I Fatagan.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that would probably get auto-corrected. But it's pretty good. So
no, he added those to the dictionary.
Oh, my God.
We're dealing with a little five cultist. Speaking of the internet and other things, I am now a fan of Horse eBooks, which is a Twitter account set up by a Russian spammer. It takes random phrases from ebooks that it tries to sell you and just posts them on their Twitter account like one an hour. And these phrases have no connection with logic, syntax, context, anything. But they're hilarious because they're so, like it'll literally send out a tweet saying delicious mud. And that's it, Now you too can kiss hair, Do you have too many horses? Throw one away. Trainer of deadly untrainable horses, And it's developed a fan following because people love this shit. And like, there's two Tumblrs. There's one that just writes fan fiction where they take one sentence in there and make that what Horse ebook says. Like, I was being stalked by Horse ebooks, and then it's do re fa mi do re fa fa so fa fa, and like, and then there's also Horse e-comics, which makes comics out of phrases from that, So it's perfect and beautiful, and it makes the world a better place. So you should be a fan of Horse ebooks.
Yes, I have one more.
Yeah,
it's actually a 6-year-old, I believe, a 6-year-old game that I recently got up again. The Movies.
Okay. Game
Lionhead Studios released. I think it was 2005.
Oh man, I remember that one. That was forever.
Yeah, and I got Windows 7, so it didn't work. Finally found a way to play it, and I forgot. You go 6 years and not play a game, and then suddenly take it up again, and suddenly it's like fresh and new again.
Yeah,
and I must say,
I'm like that way with XCOM.
XCOM's just beautiful.
Yeah,
but the Movies, it surprised me how much I'm playing it again, and it's. Yeah, I think managing your lot's fun, but I think the most is just setting up the scenes and actually making the movie.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so kudos Lionhead for a game you released 6 years ago.
Going back to a more mystery investigation kind of thing, I just read the new graphic novel Parker the Outfit, which is based on the film noir or the noir fiction mystery character Parker, who was a professional criminal. Mel Gibson portrayed him in Payback, and there's a whole lot of other movies and things. Anyways, this graphic novel based on the novel The Outfit, where he gets revenge on the Outfit, which is their code word for the organization, the syndicate, and it's incredibly hard boiled. I mean, he is impossibly tough and grizzled and badass, and it is a great art and great story, dialogue. So and then finally we all watched Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. So, we mentioned it earlier in the podcast. I know it's kind of a bigger movie, but I think it's one. I think it's
obscure enough.
Yeah,
it's not something most people want to just rush out and see.
Yeah, it's based on a John le Carre novel, and it's about Cold War spying and espionage
in like 1973.
Yeah, 1973, 1970s London. Gary Oldman is phenomenal in it as the main character.
He doesn't even speak for like the first 15 to 20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, he is.
It's just all his face.
Yeah, he is very reserved, shall we say? Very British.
Yeah. Although the John Hurt, his boss in the beginning, is the opposite of that.
Yeah, and it's like great, especially when you're going to do a Call of Cthulhu. That's a great model for how an investigation, a mystery game should be like. That kind of level.
Lots of just slogging through legwork.
You could really replace it and do it as a Delta Green game, replacing the spy instead of spying for the Soviet Union for a cult or MJ Majestic 12 or something like that, and work even better, because then there's always that element.
And I love the infighting that goes on within the organization,
the bureaucratic fighting,
the little fiefdoms.
Yeah. The bureaucracies are great. Like, that's a big element that was then incorporated in the Atrocity archives. Makes me want to get the actual Le Carre novels and read them. So I don't know if any of you read them or what were any other impressions of the movie?
I'll just reiterate Gary Oldman. He does a lot with like maybe a page worth or two of dialogue in the screenplay. Like, he's got a pretty solid monologue, and then there's kind of a parlor scene.
Yeah.
And other than that, he just looks like he's being very careful about everything, but he still does a pretty good job characterizing the character. So I was really impressed. So,
or the scene where when he's talking about the Soviet spy master.
Right, the monologue.
yeah, he does a great job of what he has.
Yeah. And if you go on Wikipedia, like, there are fans that have written up, like, their Wikipedia entries for all the major characters in Le Carre novels.
And also, if you think waterboarding is intense, I kind of like the scenes they do in that. It's not, it's torture, but not 24.
Well, they only show you a little bit of it, like a few seconds of it. They didn't show you the
also
hours.
A lot of it is just leaving them there.
Yeah.
Just tied up for hours.
Yeah. Pretty unpleasant.
Yeah.
So, and then finally, of course, we have our anecdote.
And what an anecdote.
Recently, Aaron finally finished his game, The Legacy of Nim, which is what he ran at Gen Con. Where he took, basically taking The Secret of Nim, the Don Bluth animated film, and adding Lovecraftian stuff to it. So, and he ran it Monsters and Other Childish Things. We were all mice or rats, or I think we were all rats.
Rats.
Intelligent rats. I was the magic rat, the rat with magic powers.
I wasn't in there for the first part.
Right. What were your impressions? Well, Caleb, you were there for both sessions. What were you?
Well, the Lovecraftian stuff, I had somehow forgot what he was talking about writing. I did not see it coming in the game.
Yeah.
And then how it came in the game.
Yeah.
So, I was trying to play like a kind of cutesy, lovable fool character. And man, shit just got real. Like,
Grimdark.
yeah, it just got. It was not a bad game. It was entertaining as hell. It was very climactic, and it had a nice arc. I enjoyed the way the characters went through it. But man, it was just like you thought Nim was intense. Wait till you see the sequel. Like it just came out of nowhere.
This is true. Of course, there's kind of hints in the first session when we had to deal with the humans who were about to tear up a place we had to go into, so we had to get them out of the way. And so Aaron let my character, who had magic powers. Let's see here. What did we do? I gave a guy an imaginary urinary tract infection.
Again?
Yeah.
Again,
This is
Ross.
only the second time I've done it in a game.
But one should have been enough.
No, that's my thing now. Anytime I have mind control powers, that's what I'm going to use to disable people. You have a urinary tract infection and deal with it.
My urinary tract was removed in the war.
That's not a thing. That's not. And then the other thing, we put allergens in a guy's histamine spray, so he would have a very bad reaction when he used it, and or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was. So we nearly killed a guy, by provoking a deadly allergy attack, and then gave the other guy incredible pain from an imaginary tract infection. So, and that was the first session. That was before things got really real. Just Caleb is looking.
Yeah, I was only there for the second part, but from what I understand, things went into grimdark territory really quick.
Yeah, the basic plot revolved finding a missing captain of the guard who took some important items from the community and from Thorn Valley or something, and we had to go find him, get the items back, and then we found out there's a new threat to the kingdom, and bad things are happening. So.
Mass graves, mutilation, just cosmic horror.
There's zombies. Okay, I had nothing to do with Aaron having zombies in there. Like that. Like, do not throw that on me. But yeah,
you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of when you're a kid, you see the Jungle Book, the film. And, like, Baloo, fun in the jungle. And then you read, like, Kipling. It reminded me of that transition. You're just like, this is really racist. And then Mowgli, like becomes the Beastmaster and has them, like, raise a village to the ground. And you're just like, where's Baloo? And that was my reaction to the game. Kipling's good. But if you go in expecting something else, it was a sudden transition.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, like, the same thing with, like, if you read, like, the real Little Mermaid or something like that, like, it doesn't quite have the same ending. Basically all the Disney movies, let's say.
Yeah.
So, Anyways, I think that wraps up this
Good job,
episode.
Aaron. Good job.
Good job. Yeah, that was a fun game. He's wanting to run a Wild Talents game based in that, so hopefully we'll see how that turns out soon.
And so will you.
Yeah. Anyway, this has been RPPR episode 69, Critique of Cthulhu. This is Ross Payton.
I'm Tom, and Caleb's over here. Ah!
Hey.
He made a noise.
Yes. We'll see you next time.
We have in Cthulhu. He cares about us all equally. If you see him, you go blind. If you don't, you lose your mind. And rend your eyes out so you cannot see.
I was feeling down and dejected, and every day felt more like a curse. Then I thought about the horror that sleeps beneath the waters, and remembered it could get much worse. Oh, what a friend we have in Cthulhu. He cares about us all equally. If you see him, you go blind. If you don't, you lose your mind and rip your eyes out so you cannot see.
So just how big a friend is Cthulhu? He's unlike any friend you've ever known. Though he's bigger than a house, he's as quiet as a mouse. Till he comes to rip the flesh right from your bones.
Oh, what a friend we have in Cthulhu. He cares about us all equally. If you see him, you go blind. If you don't, you lose your mind and rip your eyes out so you cannot see.
Now deep within this house at the lair, dead Cthulhu dreams while waiting for the hour when he rises from the brine and returns to crush your spine as he shambles home to show the world his power.
Now, people, everybody, testify before Cthulhu!
I just broke up with my cheating slimeball husband, and I'm waiting for Cthulhu to come back and fit him in his lousy, no good.
Well, actually, I didn't used to be able to walk, but now I can,
He'll fix all of your problems.